would be if you can essentially talk a little bit about, why it's important, and specifically the community, right?
Right.
When we're talking about black voters and we're talking about mobilization being down, why is it important for
Thinking about local elections?
Local elections, exactly. And how do local elections affect, how does voting in a local election like this affect national campaigns as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about it.
I'm District Attorney Scott Cologne, District Attorney for the Columbus, Starkville, West Point, Knoxville County area. And I'm here to tell you about how important voting is. Local elections are usually the areas where voters can have the most influence in what type of community they want to have. The local election impacts where who's appointed to school boards, where your local resources go for police, for education, for parks and recreation. If you want to have influence in your community about how those dollars are spent, you have to vote. It makes a big difference. And then those local officials also have influence about how federal and state dollars are spent. So don't ever forget, don't give up your voice when it comes to local elections, state elections, and national elections.
Perfect. Talk a little bit about when it comes to voting, talking and getting your own community, the mobilization of this. Let me have you scoot over just a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And talk a little bit about it's not just enough to go vote, but you got to mobilize your community, get your friends, your family, your neighbors, get them all involved. Just give me 1 second.
Everybody wants to be an influencer now, but the best way to be an influencer is actually politics. You can get your family, your friends, your church, your neighbors to listen to what you think about politics, listen to what candidates you think have their best interests at heart. Then you can be not only a social media influencer, you can be a political influencer, and you can help shape your community, shape your city, shape this wonderful state of ours.
I must say, just Hattiesburg, go out and go vote. All right?
Hattiesburg is your voice. Go out and vote.
One more time.
Hattiesburg, your voice matters. Go out and vote.
Excellent.
All right, appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
And so I'm what you call ABD, always dissertation. Other than that, I have my USM too. But I had 2 good years here. I was assistant director for the teacher corps program. Back in the day, we managed the project in Perry County. So I got deep roots. I go further back. Courts in Alabama. Who left was been in this court in this area. We stole it and brought it to beautiful junior college. And we took every good football player that they had in Hattiesburg with it. And Willie DuBose, Johnny Revis, Leroy Hamden, a whole bunch of folks that was stellar players. We won the junior college championship under Coach Lattimore, and then Jackson State stole Coach Lattimore from us. And so I do have some history. George Davis, who was a high school quarterback, was my roommate at Utica Junior College. George left and went to Gary after that. Just like most of the time, you don't ever find out where people are until you hear bad things about them. So George is still with me. I called his name while I was here. But let me thank the Democratic Party for the invitation. I've been an elected Democrat my entire life. I'm the dean of the delegation. I've been in every major elective office you can name. In every office, including this one, I had to fight to get there. I had to fight to prove that I was qualified, but I had to also fight so it wouldn't take the election from me. So I've seen both of them, and it's been the Democratic Party that's kind of engaged this whole effort that we lead women on the whole elected office. We lead people of color on the whole elected office because this country looks like the rainbow. and it's looking like the rainbow, that means anyone can offer and serve. That's why I'm so conflicted in this whole effort about immigration. You know, that's a red herring. Don't let folks move. Look, we are who we are. And we have to be that way. But we can't let people point people out and try to take them on as the problem. We have Noah Harris, his future father and mother-in-law, and then he on giving up. But Noah worked for me a couple of years, wonderful young man. He's at Harvard right now and doing excellent work. But the point is, now all of a sudden, we have a president who wants us to believe that anybody who's not from here that's going to Harvard, you need to send them back. Well, that's 27% of the enrollment for Harvard. And he said, well, we could take those resources and send them to other colleges. That's that divide and conquer mindset.
That's it.
But everyone who's here from another country, they write the check. They don't get a payoff grant. They don't get a loan. They have to pay 100% of the tuition. So don't be divided by what you hear. And I'll kind of call the roll as since I started with education. There's no way in the world we can stay number one in this country if we do away with the United States Department of Education. As good as our system of public education. And what we have with the United States Department of Education is a standard. And that standard means that you know every day what your goals are. You know how you get evaluated. If we do away with it, we'll end up with 50 state departments of education. And nobody knowing one thing from the other. So I'm so glad that we had to go to court to prove to this administration that we need a Department of Education. Now you think in the most advanced country in the world, we would have to go to court to prove this, right? But we have to. Now, they get mad with the judges when the judges said, you can't get rid of it. Next thing they said, we're going to impeach the judge. Wait a minute. Look, I've been on the winning side of lawsuits, and I've been on the losing side of lawsuits. What you normally do is appeal. You don't impeach. But part of what we are faced with is a phenomenon we never had before. And that's someone who can do no wrong, who's running that. And that's not who we are. My grandson is 19 years of age. And you know, most of us, you know, when the President of the United States comes on, we say, be quiet, honey. That's the President. Or we used to say, be quiet, Thompson, that's my grandson. That's the President speaking. One day, you'll be just like him. Can you think of telling your grandson that one day I want you to be like the current president?
No.
So what happens to all of us is when we don't stay engaged, then things like that happen. When you have a president who says, I want to be a dictator for a day, that should have been the red flag right there. The greatest democracy in the world, and you talk about being a dictator for a day. Well, we had a chance to fix it, but folks say, oh, you know, that's not right. He's just talking. Well, look, if he says it, believe it. And so then, in the midst of it, he said, well, if you vote for me this time, you'll never have to vote again. Oh my God. Wait a minute. In a democracy, we cheat. You know, every election. Some win, some lose. but we have choices. And so one of the great things about this democracy is we pick our leaders at ballot boxes. You know, we don't pick them at any other place other than the precinct where the ballots are. And that's why the great equalizer for this democracy is on that day, the billionaire and the homeless person, they're equal. And that's why this democratic principle that we follow are so important. So now all of a sudden, I'll fast forward, we got someone now who say, basically, by Twitter, whatever he wants to do in this country. Now, you know, every now and then full disclosure, but sometimes I have to refer to the law and what the law requires, and somehow we miss that. So what we now have in front of us is someone who's trying to monetize his family at the expense of you and I. He said, well, you know, they have a term, they call it the emoluments clause. You know, we got a fancy name for everything. So, well, what does emoluments mean? That means you can't enrich yourself while you're in public office. The last time, he had a hotel. And every night he went to the hotel to meet people and handle business. When the Secret Service stayed at the hotel, by law, they had to because they were part of the protection detail. He was charging 3 times the price of the room for the Secret Service. So that's monetizing even back then. And even with that, the hotel went broke. and so what we have now is figure it out. I don't know anything about Bitcoin. Okay? Now, I know a lot. But then I know what I don't know. And I'm not embarrassed to say I don't know. So when somebody says, well, you need to invest in this, you can't go wrong. How much you got invested in?
Well, now.
Well, you know, I'm just selling. Okay. You remember you used to walk the street? That fellow got about 5 watches on his arm. And, you know, you got a Longines, which is really a Longines. You got all those different names. And you think you got a deal. Put that watch on the dresser at night. About 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear a loud noise. You say, what is that? That's that $500 watch you bought for 50, thinking you had a deal, making all that noise. You know, so be careful. But now what he's doing is saying, you invest in it, and all of a sudden, you get rich. All right? Be careful. Now, his son, his son-in-law, everywhere he's visiting as president, they have an economic development project built around his family. Just follow it now. Why would you go to Qatar? And all of a sudden, you got a plane worth $400 million given to you, and you liked it because the commode was gold. And so you want to bring it home, and then spend $1 billion trying to retrofit it to be an update of Air Force One, when we have 2 running right now, and got 2 on board to replace the 2 that's been there. But you want a special one. And so we have to, as a people, understand what's happening. And so that's why, you know, if I win, we party. If I lose, I say I'll get you next time. And that's just who we are. That's what makes us #1 in the world. But when you start listening to the messages that are coming out of that, I shudder to think what the future holds for us. When you say Vladimir Putin is a great man, and that the country he's fighting is their fault. Think that. He started the fight. So you're going to blame the victim rather than the person who started. Now, as of yesterday, he mad with Putin. Because Putin won't listen to him. He said, well, we've been trying to kill him. To bring him back. You know, we can do all these things, but we can't heal the sick. Because we won't invest in it. Something wrong with that. And some of the people who say that, Pastor, will tell you, oh, you know, I'm a Christian. Yeah, you know, and I'm trying to say, well, if your religion or your Bible tells you you should heal the sick, you know, provide for the hungry, shelter for those who don't have it, because a lot of us, full confession, don't pray every day. You know, we pray when we're in trouble. If we go to the casino, put my leg down. You know, there are times that we do it, but we don't do it all the time. But the important thing I'm trying to make, it's also the life you lead. If you're helping people by virtue of what you're able to do, then that's wonderful. So when we all leave, and you know, I'm trying to give account of my life on earth, there's this whole notion about, you know, St. Peter. And, you know, I got to say, well, you know, I didn't pray every night, but I took care of the family. But when people were hungry, I fed them. When they did that, then when they finished, hit that button. So, oh, before you hit that button now, I got a few more things. I want to get as many brownie points in, so you might not touch that button. So I think for our public officials, we have to have a conscience for the people we represent. And that conscience will lead you to do what's right. It would have led you to vote against this bill because in Mississippi, 1 in 5 persons is on SNAP. That means in some situation, there's a food insecurity going and we have to provide for them. If it's SNAP, so be it. 800,000 are on Medicaid. That means, and a majority of them on Medicaid are working every day. They just qualify for the health benefit. Now, if you've never been in a situation where you didn't have health insurance, you're fortunate. I guarantee you, if you could go to the doctor because you didn't have insurance, and all of a sudden you got really sick and had to go to the hospital, and you got that bill, that's a problem because you can't pay it. So in America, we ought to make that affordability available to everyone who's here. And we can do it. We can do it. That we voted on last week. We argued the bill. There were over 500 amendments off. And it was simple enough that you don't cut Medicaid, you hold it harmless. You don't cut SNAP, you hold it harmless. Just trying to protect the people who don't have the lobbyists, trying to protect the people who don't have special interests. They're just American citizens, trying to protect our veterans. Because part of what you're doing is cutting their health benefits that we promised them that if you go to service, you never have to worry about a doctor. We'll educate you, we'll buy you a house, and do a whole bunch of things. Then we were reneging on a lot of that, because like a lot of you, all of a sudden, you call a government number, and all it does is ring. We're going to run against Cindy Hyde-Smith. He's not from that neck of the woods, but he's a district attorney in North Mississippi. What county is Scott? That's right, already. How many terms? Third term, district attorney. The person you beat has 27 year income. All right. Willing to offer themselves public office. We just have to get behind it. Now, look, you don't be mad at me because I said that, you know. But if I see you on the plane going to Washington and you don't speak to me, what else you gonna do? You're already mad. So the only thing I say to you, look at the voting record. The beautiful part of where we are. Every vote is recorded, you can start saying. So when that person comes up to you and says, oh, anything I can do for you, just let me know. Oh, I'm glad that. You pull out the sheet and say, you voted against this, you voted against that. Why? Well, you know I'm talking to everybody. But your district requires help. And you voted against it. So, the best thing I can tell you is, you know, we try hard to be 50 in everything in this state. And you don't just get 50 because folks like you. You try hard to work. That's right. You got to work at everything to be 50. So, Democratic Party, you need to help us get off the house by doing what they're doing. And it's really not difficult. Example, but every dollar that we send to Washington, we get $3 back. And if somebody says, well, we don't need no help, we're going to pull up our own bridges. We ain't got no pants on. That's up all of a sudden. You going to try to convince us. But we need help. And there's help available. And for the most part, you're taking that help. If it helps your friend. But if it helps other folks, oh no, we don't need that. I say take all the help. That's possible. Because then you're helping Mississippi. And that way we can all get off the bottom. Because on the business side, all the money that comes, it comes, and the business folks benefit. Business people hire local people. If money turns over 4 or 5 times in the community before it leaves, that means it has impact. I'm the only person who voted for the ARPA money.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Cologne. Mr. Cologne was nominated to be a federal judge Congress, when you appoint someone to be held up by the city by one person. That one person was named Sidney Hattiesburg. And I'm just telling you that because this is about education. You can't vote if you don't have all the information.
Put the mic to your mouth.
Well, you can vote, but you be voting the wrong one.